Jeremiah says this: just as God had a planned destination for Jeremiah, a planned destiny for Jeremiah, he also has a planned destiny for you. Just as God had a planned destiny for Jeremiah, he also has a planned destiny for you. Look at verse 4 and 5. The Lord gave me this message: I knew you before I formed you in your mother's womb. Before you were born, I set you apart and appointed you as a prophet to the nations. God speaking to Jeremiah when he was about 17 years old. Any teenagers in the house? Anybody? Any young adults, teenagers in the house? Can y'all wake up for about 3 minutes? Let me see you. Anybody? Okay, we got a couple. All right, listen. So why did God call Jeremiah at such a young age? You see, for Jeremiah, this plan, this destiny was so big and so great. This predetermined assignment was so large and impacted so many that God wanted to ensure that Jeremiah would be operating in accordance with his will early in his life so that he could prepare for what was to come. In other words, he called him early, so he called him now so he could prepare him for his later. Sometimes God will speak to us about a destiny now to prepare us for what's to come later. Sometimes God will show you a vision of something that is not for now, but is certainly for your later. We have to be careful and not rush God because he shows us something now, but it's for your later. You see, you can't skip through the mess. You can't skip through the preparation. I know he has shown you something now, but I want to remind you maybe it's for your later. And something else that I want to remind you as it relates to Jeremiah. The reason that I believe that God showed Jeremiah the call that was on his life when he did is because he did not want Jeremiah wasting time doing good things instead of God things. And in other words, Jeremiah could have grown up to be a doctor. He could have grown up to be a lawyer. He could have grown up to be a business owner. He could have grown up to be the HVAC person. Maybe he would have joined the Israelite army. He could have done a lot of good things, but it wouldn't have been a God thing. You see, the God thing was for Jeremiah to become one of his strong voices. And it made me think about us as a people. I wonder how many people under the sound of my voice, you are doing a lot of good things, but I would have to challenge you and ask you, is it a God thing? I know you are doing some good things, but is that the specific thing that God has asked you to do in this season? The problem in our walk is that most of us aren't walking around robbing banks. Most of us are not walking around committing murder, but most of us are walking around doing good things and not doing the thing that you were formed and shaped to do. That's why you keep waking up in the middle of the night looking at your coffee and looking at the wall and looking at the window saying, man, I know that was a good thing, but I feel like I'm missing out on something. I wish I had somebody that would help me preach and be honest and say, you know that you've done some good things, but you woke up in the middle of the night and said, Lord, it got to be something more. There is something more because you've been doing good, but you have not been doing God. So here Jeremiah teaches us, for what is before us, as I always like to say, guess what? It's getting late in the evening and the sun is going down, meaning that we don't have a whole lot of time to play. I need you to get on assignment because there are some people waiting on you and depending on you. And guess what else I want you to know about Jeremiah? When God called Jeremiah at this early age, he called him young to prepare him, but he also called him because of him. Can I say that again? He called him early to prepare him, but he called him because of him. In other words, when God calls a person, he does not erase your personality. He wants to use you, the delivered you, not the Tupac, I ain't a killer, but don't push me you. He wants to use the real you, right? The delivered you, right? He wants to use the delivered you for his glory. One commentator said this about the call on Jeremiah. He said that God wanted a man that was gentle and tenderhearted for this unrewarding ministry of condemnation. Men and women of God, I want to remind you, not only is God calling your name, not only does he want to prepare you, when he calls you, he knows exactly who you are. He knows about your failures. He knows about your mistakes. He knows about your limitations. He knows about your proclivity to lose your mind every now and then, but he has still called you by name. And I don't know about you, but I am glad that the Lord knows me by name, because some folks in the world may call me this or that, but the Lord knows me by name. And when the Lord called Jeremiah, he called him by name. I want to remind somebody today that God is calling you today. He's calling you by name because there is a great work that is required of thee. If you trust him, he is going to do greatness through